Hey everybody, it's Dan. Welcome back and welcome to another plastic Can I call you friends? It's been like 150 videos. I've been wanting to call you friends, but I didn't want you to think it was corny or hokey, but I'm going to call you friends. Hey friends, it's Dan. Welcome back and welcome to another plastic miniature review, this time for the late Roman Cataphracts, produced by Victrix. And as with all of these Victrix reviews I've been doing, this is sponsored by Victrix because they were kind enough to send this to me to review for you. So big thanks to Victrix for their ongoing support. And as I keep saying, I'm excited for this one too. I'm particularly excited for this one because it is the first of 6 sets that they sent me for their late Roman range, which we're going to be reviewing here in the lead up to a couple new early Dark Age, late Roman releases. They're releasing some Franks, some Carolingians, and I'm not sure if they're Irish or technically going to fall into this part of the range or if it's going to be more medieval, but we'll see. But we got some upcoming late Roman stuff, so it seems like a good time to have some thorough reviews of their late Roman stuff. I'll tell you guys here on a personal note that late Romans is one project that I have never done, but I've always wanted to do. It actually was the first range of miniatures that I was ever interested in outside of Games Workshop was the Metal Foundry Arthurians. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but I was like 14 when I first encountered that line, and I wanted it so badly, but they were all metals and I couldn't afford them. So it was something that just kind of got pushed to the back of my mind, but I loved the design. And what makes me so excited about this Victrix range is that you can achieve a very similar look, but with substantially cheaper and much more versatile multi-part plastics. I'm indulging myself a little bit here because of the 6 kits, the Cataphracts are the ones that I'm most excited to look at. I was going to save them for last, but I had a couple of channel members say that they were interested in this one too, so I thought let's go ahead and take a look. So this set is interesting because while many of us are used to 10 to 12 miniatures within a set, this one comes with 16. So 16 Cataphract miniatures within this box. I guess Victrix does also do their medieval knights in 18, but 16 for me anyway is an unusual number otherwise. My normal disclaimers apply here at the beginning about Victrix packaging, that when you receive it, you're going to get it in a baggie like this, so you can see all the sprues inside. I normally say I've never seen anything break in the many dozens of sets that I've had shipped to me from abroad, but if you do, just reach out to their support. Kind of in an ironic twist, I've seen some feedback from subscribers who've indicated that they have had maybe some stuff get bent. There seems to be like almost like an inverse relationship between how far away you are from Nottingham, Victrix HQ, and how likely you are to have something get damaged. Because again, I'm way across the pond in the northeastern US, and I've never had anything get broken, but I've seen several comments now from people that live like one town over saying that they've had some stuff get bent. So anyway, as I said, reach out to support if you got any issues. They are lovely people to deal with. What you're going to get if you pick this up for yourself, again, it's going to arrive in a baggie, as mine have. You're going to get 4 sprues of the horse, like the barded horses here, and then 4 sprues of the riders, which we'll take a look at here in just a moment. If you're new here, welcome. My normal also disclaimer is that we're going to go through each of those sprues individually, one each of them anyway. I'll assemble the models after we look at a bits breakdown of everything in there. We'll do some scale comparisons, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. So what you'll also be greeted with is a little printout of the parts that come inside of the set and how they can be assembled. I also say with Victrix sets that these are generally guidelines, that I find that there's a lot more versatility with these sets, that you can mix and match bits a lot more than these instructions might suggest. And in fact, on more recent printouts, what they typically say instead are that most arms will work on all the figures, which is good that they're starting to state that as well, or at least designing kits that way, so that it's much more obvious that that's the case. But we also have a unique situation here, I realized, in that we have the 3 generations of Victrix assembly instructions all in one place. Because the Cataphracts originally, on the back of this packaging here, came with what used to come on Victrix sets, which was this. It didn't come with any of the printouts. It just had a list of all the bits and which bits could go with which bodies. They then evolved into this system, so you can see the Cataphracts have both, because the original packaging still has those parts numbers in the back, but they're starting to include these. And I'm wondering, I have no inside information into the fact, but I'm wondering if this suggests that they might be putting out a pillage set for late Romans, because we know that for the Victrix Vikings and Saxons and some other sets that originally did not include these now have these printouts. So they haven't announced it yet, but that's just me speculating. So anyway, but if I'm right, you heard it here first. But this is what they've then graduated into. We saw this on the Greek review that we did just yesterday, if you're watching these in real time. So you can see here that they started here, moved into these printouts, and now they have the printouts that are color-coded. It also shows a copy of the sprue. So very cool to have all that included, but enough about that. Again, we'll isolate one each of these sprues. You can get 4 of each, 8 total sprues, 4 of the horses, 4 of the riders. As is customary, I guess we'll start with the horses here. And I'll give you a shot of the front and back. And we'll look at some of these details up close. My normal observations about Victrix apply here. That the detail is very, very well done. It's crisp. The production is great. You don't see any mold lines anywhere, like on the side of the horse heads here. You would expect these mold lines to continue up, but there's really nothing to trim off. But if there is, you can just scrape it off or use the side of your X-Acto knife or a file, whatever you like. So these are 2-part horses with these separate tail attachments, which many of you, if you're used to wargaming in this scale, will be accustomed to that kind of design. So nothing out of the ordinary there. What is out of the ordinary is that there are 8 heads to 4 bodies. Because again, this is one of 4 sprues for 16 horses. So you actually get 32 horse heads, which is a really neat inclusion. I'll show you some of the details here up close as I ramble. But it's a neat inclusion because normally horses, you might see like 1 or 2 extra horse heads on a sprue like this. I think the Perrys are very good at that. But I've never seen this many horse heads to this many bodies, which gives you a lot of great options. And you can see that they're in different poses. Some of them have some like tassels up top, some of them don't. And then of course the main event for a Cataphract is the barding on the horses themselves. This really lovely scale mail that you can see, I think looks fantastic. It really holds up to like close scrutiny here, even as you zoom in. Oop, too far. Make the camera blurry. But I think, yeah, these look great. They're really a good mix of different poses there that I think are going to make for some really fantastic horses. Now let's move on to the rider sprue. So as with the horses, you're going to get 4 of this rider sprue. I'll show you the front and back here. And the same production notes apply here. Everything's very crisp. I see no mold lines or flash that jumps out at me. Really, normally with Victrix, even on their older sets, I typically only see it on really small bits, like on the head of an arrow or something like that. You might see a little bit of flash, but in this case, I don't. So the rider bodies that you see in the middle, there's 1 that's complete, and then 3 have separate torsos. And from a design standpoint, you can see that some of them have the same scale mail that the horses have. Actually, the lamellar design here really reminds me of their more recently released Rus, which makes sense because this is a similar part of the world, albeit an earlier time frame. But yeah, great detail and sculpting on all the chainmail like normal, but also this like plate armor that some of them have on the legs. And you can see it's totally different designs on each of them too, which is nice. Backs of the bodies here. It makes for really unique looking pieces on the battlefield, especially once you start mixing and matching heads and bits and stuff like that. On that note, so in terms of heads, there are 13. They're scattered around the sprue, so I'll kind of just move around here. And you can see they are late Roman design generally, but every head is unique. And you can see that's even in little things like the crests on the helm here. Some of them are quite intricate in terms of the detail. Like if I flip this here and try to zoom in for you, just look at the details on the helmet there. So they look really, really good. Of the 13 heads, there are 2 that can be fully enclosed. If I rotate one more time, like this guy here, which once again looks quite close to the Rus. So I'm going to do a little bit of kit bashing with the Rus set just to see if any of those heads would work on this set to make some more fully enclosed guys. And then this one's neat. You'll see that these are the 2 face mask options that can go in this head, which is super cool. So if I zoom back for a second, you'll note that there are 8 arms, or 8 sets of arms, I should say, that carry these long lances, and there's a name for it, which is the Kantos. 8 Kantos. Kantoses? Not sure. But for each rider, you're going to have one option that is thrusting, like this, and then one option that's upright, and that is driven home. If I go back to the instructions here, you can see for each rider you've got an attacking version, two-handed, and then you've got an upright version. So you can have them either, kind of at ready or riding, or you can have them in fighting poses. So I'll just kind of move around the sprue here, but they have used in some cases single pieces, but in some cases, especially for the attacking poses, you can see this 2-part design, which we see a lot now in their command options, like standards. They're much more prone now to using these 2-part designs, or two-handed like Dane axes. They'll do that sometimes too. I think very successful. You can see there's a little notch here that then connects up with a little notch on this side, so it makes for a very simple join that's quite sturdy and keeps it straight. So there you go. And then rounding out the sprue, you've got some axes over here that can hang off of their belts if you like. You have 4 of those, 1 for each rider. You also have 4 scabbards that are scattered around. 2 down here, 1 here. And then you have 1 Draco standard, which has some lovely detail on it. It's really nice. Oh, I forgot to mention too, there's 2 tassels here and here that can go on a couple of the heads. So there you have it. Fairly straightforward sprue, but I'm very eager, as I said, to put some of these together and maybe do some kit bashing with some of the Rus, maybe some other Victrix sets in my collection, see what I can come up with. So let me cut here and do that. Alright, so I've made up a couple of these models. The first 2 are just straight out of the box. And these look so good. They're so good. I meant to look at the copyright is on these, because I know they've been out for a number of years, but yeah, I don't see anything on the sprue. They've been out for a couple of years. I don't remember exactly when they came out, but man, do these look good. Not just the poses look super organic and natural, both the horse and the rider, but together, of course, they look fantastic too. But you just look at the detail in the scale armor. Again, there's 3 different types of armor on a lot of these riders. So you've got this like plate armor on the legs, you got chainmail, lamellar. That's so good. So detailed. Here's another one. This is a upright design, of course, non-attacking pose. Same thing here, again, subtle variation in the armor of both the rider and the horse, like the barding on it. It's different. They're going to be a real dream to paint up, I think. Now I get a couple of conversions here, just some simple ones. So using the same bodies, this is using arms from, I think in this case, the Oathmark Human Light Infantry, just to make some kind of like mounted heavy archer here. But you could just as easily use archer arms from a different Victrix set, like their Dark Age archers, for example, their late Roman archers, which we'll be looking at here shortly. There's plenty to choose from. And then here's one using bits from the Rus set. I was digging around, I was trying to find more heavily armored arms, because there's a couple of Dane axe arms that are like have like chainmail on them, but I couldn't find one. So this will have to do. But you can see from a proportion standpoint, these work just fine. I did have to do like 2 little cuts on the arms just to get them to align, but that's typically all you need to do when you're doing conversion work with two-handed weapons from Victrix. The head is also from the Rus set. I think it matches the aesthetic here quite nicely. So there you go. Let's throw them on the Lazy Susan. Let's throw them on the Lazy Susan and see how they scale up with my other manufacturers. Alright, let's take them for a spin here. And because my cavalry collection is not organized like my infantry is, I'm going to have to call everything out as it goes around. But bear with me here. So we've got Victrix Cataphract. That's a Victrix Medieval Knight. I think Victrix is remarkably consistent in terms of scale across their various collections. Another Catapphract. That's a Wargames Atlantic Mounted Sergeant using one of the light horses. That's Fireforge Games. Victrix Cataphract. Firelock Games from their Blood and Plunder line. Perry Miniatures. Victrix Cataphract. Wargames Atlantic Medieval Knight. And Perry Miniatures, same horse but with barding that time. And we're back to Cataphract. So what's the final verdict? Man, what a way to start off a range of late Romans that we're going to be looking at again. I've got 5 more sets from their late Roman range to look at, but the detail on these is so good. Like among the best Victrix sets that we've seen. It doesn't have a ton of options in terms of like close combat weapons, but they shouldn't, you know, from a historical standpoint. They've just got these long Contos lances, because that's what they would have been equipped with. However, as we saw, it's very easy if you've got other bits in your collection to bring in some of those. Certainly if you're using Victrix bits, everything from a proportion standpoint is going to match up just fine. So I think this is a great, beautifully detailed set that is absolutely something you should include if you have a late Roman army, but even a Dark Age army generally. I see a lot of application here, even if you're doing like Byzantines, if you're doing some like Goths, for example. I think that these would look really, really fantastic. So thank you again to Victrix for sending these our way. Again, we've got a number of late Roman sets to look at here, probably in the course of the next week and a half or so from a timing standpoint. So stay tuned for that if that's something you're interested in. However, regardless, I appreciate you dropping by for this one in the meantime. And until next time, happy gaming.